Hi guys, welcome back. On today with the strip down and clean up of the cross slide and the compound. Not really a lot of explanation required this time, just a lot of bits and bobs. There's a metal spacer and a brass nut on the top of that. The tool turret comes off just like so. There are 4 screws on the top here. It'll come out nice and easily. The end of the compound is held in place by a block, and there's a screw underneath to remove that block. The cleanup for this one's going to be super easy. There isn't a lot of paint on it. I don't like the paint that's on it, it's just on this front section really, on the cross slide. So I'm just going to scrape that back, polish it up instead. Certainly not in the mood to repaint that, because I don't think it really adds anything to the overall appearance. I may take a second view on that later on, but right now I'm not intending to. Now I need to take the compound off in order to get at the scale on the top here, just under that section. It's very, very dirty, so that needs polishing up on the cross slide itself. So I'm going to flip it over. This screw here holds in that block there that stops this whole unit sliding off the end. So we'll just undo that. That's coming now. Okay. Nice little friction fit, so I'm going to put the screw for that straight back into it so that I don't lose that. Remembering that the 2 holes are at the back end, can go in the pot, which means that this should now come off the end. Which it does. Lovely. This has definitely been used to turn wood at some point, because that's not metal. I'm guessing it's box for chess pieces or something like that. Now that piece there should be held in place by 2 screws. I can see that one of them's sheared off there. That's going to be interesting to deal with. Okay. No, we'll figure that out later. Trying to work out what's happened to the rest of the screw. That hole does appear to be blocked with some sheared off screw. I'm guessing someone killed that at some point, but now the other screw's been a bit chewed up as well. Now that is that's the receiving piece that the cross slides thread pushes forwards and backwards. So if that's able to move, that is going to compromise its rigidity for a start off. So we may end up having to actually fabricate another one of these out of something. We'll figure that out as we go. There's a job I wasn't expecting. Anyhow, so yeah, that is a sheared off screw. What I'm going to do with that is give it a good old blast with some RP90 and see if I can back that out with a pair of pliers. It'd be great if we could. And leave that to soak. You can see there. Oh yeah. Zoom in on this. There's actually quite a bit of the screws sticking out there. So I'm hopeful, if I'm careful and give it a good soaking first, then blast it with some heat, give it another soaking with some oil, really take your time with that. I'm hopeful that that will in fact come apart. I wonder if we just back these right out, if it's going to lift out. Yeah, it does. Nice. That should clean up pretty well. Again, it's full of grease and oil. It's in not bad condition, all things considered. And this is the bezel I was wanting to get at, which actually has degrees marked out on it. So with these located back in, it holds the compound in place. See there the end of those two grub screws sticking through. So that's a nice easy polish up. That's a little bit stiff, but I can get plenty of oil and grease down into there. And I have taken that off before, that just slides clean off. So okay, lots of gunk to clean up. That's what I was saying, there's another spacer plate here. So the end pops off. There we are. That's all the pieces. You do need to be a bit careful with these things. So those grub screws don't go all the way in. In fact, what we were saying sticking into the middle isn't actually the grub screw itself. It's just a little little bar. You can see the other one there. If I prise that out, it could get lost, so I'm going to slide that back in. It's going to polish up nice, and they lock onto this. They also pull it down, so if you caught that, the shape of the end of this little pin is cut off at an angle, and that pulls onto the bottom of that, so when you wind it in, it pushes it down again to stabilize everything, so it's not just jamming it in from the side, it's actually locking it in with friction against the dial on the top. So important that those go back in the right way as well. Okay, at this point it really is just a case of polishing and Brasso and rust removing gel is something you've seen plenty of times before. So at the risk of getting shouted at again for not even cleaning things before reassembling, I'm going to do a bunch of stuff off camera here because this is going to be very boring to watch. So I will see you back here in a sec when all of this has been magically cleaned. Just to make assembly easier, I'm going to temporarily refit one of the handles. Just going to wind the tensioners in, but not so much that they actually put a massive lot of force onto the spacer there. With those tensions, I'm just going to nip up the pinch nuts that just hold those in place. Having moved it around and illustrating beautifully why you need to make sure that these pieces are sitting nicely, that is one of the little they describe it retaining pins that's held in by a grub screw here. Now, those retaining pins are shaped to latch onto the bottom of the dovetail and they hold it in place. But it's important to make sure that they're pushed all the way back into their housing so that you can slide this in and then drop them in place. The pins themselves are actually tapered at the ends. So that's all done. Don't really need the handle on there anymore at this point. So I'm just going to pop that off. Keep it nice and safe. Need to take it off anyway to put the bezel back on. Okay, so that's the compound. Pins are back in place. Now we can relocate, cross slide. We can relocate the compound on top of that. As before, metal on metal surface, so I'm giving it a splat of copper grease. This will be latterly oiled. Now there are two little oil ports here, and just to prove that every day is a school day, I was educated on my previous video as to the purpose of these. These are little, it's a ball bearing with a spring retainer basically. And I was under the impression, have been, that you needed a special tool to actually fill those, which I don't have. But it was pointed out to me by a subscriber in the last video that in fact I do, because they're designed to be used with the tips on a normal oiler. These just sit around the ball bearing, push it in, you squirt the oil in, release it and it seals again. Beautifully simple. So there, it turns out I do have the right tool. Thanks very much to Bob for that one. Of course, all comments are very welcome, and though I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting to, I have learned something there, and I'm not above admitting that I am rather delighted by that, because it means that in fact I do have all of the tools required to not only use this lathe, but to keep it in tip-top condition moving forward. Anyway, so that's the dovetail, fits into that hole there, and then the two little pins that are controlled by grub screws on the sides latch into place and pull it down nice and tight. So that's a nice easy bit. Before we do that, or rather before I lock it in place, we need to reassemble this. Similar kind of arrangement. Again, temporarily I'm going to put on a handle. Another one of these little plates, pin in the middle of course, just that. On that piece there, that little brass plate receives the end of the threaded rod. So we need to locate that. And this one winds in anti-clockwise, unlike the one on the compound. Now with that in place, and before I lock this down onto the cross slide, I am going to turn it upside down and locate the thing that stops the compound from coming out. Just held in place with a brass screw. Okay, now we can pop this back on. Don't need this handle anymore. Just yet, anyway. Okay, all looking good. So there's the tool holder sorted. We'll make that a handle at some point. Nice and easy to do, especially given that I've got the an option to have a, say, a parting tool on one side and a cutter on the other, so I can easily twist it around. So I'll make that a handle very similar to the one here. And I've got all of the taps and dies to be able to fabricate things in it with, which is nice. So at this point we just need to get the bezels reinstalled. So these fit back on here. I'm not going to tighten that just yet. I'm going to put these little retaining nuts, the pinch nuts, on first, because if you put the handles on first, as you're whizzing it round and round, you can bash yourself on the back of the knuckles with the nut, which isn't particularly comfortable. And important to make sure that this is not compressing the bezel against the end of the slide there. So I'll bring it in nice and tight and then back it off. Okay, just nip that. Make sure it's got just a tiny bit of play, and I'm going to nip that up. Going to need a slightly smaller spanner for that one. Not too much play, and the bezel is free to move, so that's not going to get compressed against the end of the slide and give false readings. I'll tighten that up in a sec. Same procedure now on the cross slide. Okay, so that is the cross-slide and compound sorted out. Whilst I was at it, I have also completely rust treated, stripped down and cleaned up the chuck. This is a chuck called the Bernard. No idea, I shall do some homework on that one. But it's in much nicer condition now. Oiled inside and out, of course. Now with this one, it's marked 1, 2, 3, 4. There is a spiral thread on this, so each one of these has the teeth in a very slightly different position to ensure that the points all meet up. So it's really important to make sure that you relocate them in the right place. That's number 2, number 4, 3 and 1. The other thing that's really important to do is to make sure that they don't miss, because if one of them starts too far out and the others are winding in, this one catches the next thread, then it's not going to line up either. So what I'm going to do here is, with 4 fingers, apply pressure to the outsides as I'm winding in, and I can feel them all moving in there now. Chuck on the floor. So, with any luck, these will all meet up in the middle. And they do. Lovely. Okay. Time to clean the bench down and reassemble. So there you go, guys, from the ball of rust that it was when it first arrived, completely cleaned up, freed up, derusted. There is absolutely no movement at all in that bearing. That's beautiful, the spindle bearing there. These are completely and totally freed up now. I've locked this in place. Absolutely smooth as silk. Really quite pleasing to get the handles clean as well. They were very, very rough before, but have cleaned up just lovely. There's a bit of petting, but I don't think we can complain about that. Now I may at some point take a rush of blood to the head and put a splat of grey on here, but right now I'm intending to put a lot of swarf on it instead. So nice one. Very, very happy with that. Very pleasing outcome. I will be fabricating a mount for the motor next. Now the motor that I have is actually from an old wood turning lathe. This is, goodness only knows how old, a Newman Imp. And I know that because it says so on the plate. It's a Newman, and though it's difficult to read, that says Newman Imp. So yeah, need to figure out how to mount this in a way that both applies tension to it, holds it at the right height, and also allows me to slide it to the left and right to use with the different pulleys on there. Now I have actually got another pulley to replace this, a three speed pulley rather, but this is the one that I've got for now anyway. So yeah, there we go. That's the next job. Figure out how to get this big old lump mounted behind it and at the right height. So there you go, coming to the end of the marathon. Thanks very much for watching this far. If this is your kind of thing, please don't forget to like and subscribe. That will help YouTube to know that I'm doing a half decent job, and we'll get my content recommended to more people, which is nice. So yeah, I say thanks very much for watching. Take it easy. I'll see you next time.